Hello everyone and Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to my channel. I am Ahmed and today we're going to learn what is a function. So let's not wait anymore and start learning what a function is. So today we're going to learn what is a function. A function is like a machine but in mathematics, okay? It takes a input x, any input x, and corresponding to the input gives a certain value of y or a certain output. This output depends on the input. This function will take the input and then depending on what the input is, it will do some changes to it and then give a output. Now, if we were to look at an example of a function, that would be something like fx. Okay, fx is the most common variable used for functions. But you could use any letters. Okay, you could use gx, you could use ya, whatever you want. Okay, just get the point. Any two letters can be used. But the thing is, f sub x is the most commonly used value. So f of x equals to 2x. This would be the example of a function. How? Here in this function 2x, the input is x, which now is not defined. We will define it, but the input is x and the output is y, fx. In saying in simpler words, it's y equals to 2x. So you remember it takes the input x and then gives the output y. So fx can be written as y. Fx means what? F times x, right? So same thing here. If you want to find the output, this is the input x. So as I told, the output will be dependent on the input. So here, as you can see, the input is being multiplied by 2. So the output depends on the input in whichever way. That is a function. So if we were to work this one out and say that x, for find the values of y when x is varying from 0 to 3, let's say. So here is x and here is y, right? If x is 0, then y will be 2x, which is 2 times 0, right? 2 times 0, you can see 2 times 0 here. 2 times 0 is the same as f sub x, right? That is why we can write out fx as y. Okay, so 2 times 0, that is simple 0. And then if x equals to 1, then 2 times 1, that is 2. Then 2x, well, y will be 2 times 2, that will be 4. And then 3, y will be 2 whole bracket 3 equals to 6. So see how the y value depends on the x input. So here we gave a certain input 0, and then depending on that input, the function did something to that input, and then we got the value 0. And then 1 for 1, if for input 1 we get 2 times 1, that is 2. Then continues on like that. So that is a function. It takes a certain input, which in this case you can find as x, and gives a corresponding output which we call as y, but usually referred as fx. Okay, so let me show you some examples of functions so that you can understand it better. Let's say fx equals to 3x plus 4. Okay, so this is another type of function. The input to this function is this x here, and the output is this part here. Okay, so if we make out a table, which you don't have to, you can think it or work it out. So 3x plus 4. So let's say for x equals to 0. So 3x plus 4, if you know linear algebra, you can work this out pretty simply. 3x plus 4 is something like this, and again linear algebra, 3 times 0, that is 0, plus 4, y will be 4. Then for 1, y will be 3 times 1 plus 4, that is 3 plus 4, 7. And then for 2, you get 3 whole bracket 2 plus 4 equals to 3 times 2 is 6 plus 4 is 10. And then 3 whole bracket 3 plus 4, that is 3 times 3 is 9 plus 4, 13. So depending on the input, as I'm telling again and again, depending on the input, it will give a corresponding output y, which is a function. Now that we understood a function, let's look at what is not a function. So there could be confusion in this. We learned that a function is something that takes a corresponding input x, and depending on what the function is, will give a output y, and that y is dependent on the input x. So what is not a function? Normally in functions, okay, so this is a function. Normally mathematical functions will take x input, any input, and will give one and only one output value for x, which we call as y. There are cases where you, instead of getting y, you can get two outputs, so say like y1 and y2. So what could that be? Let's say fx, let's not use fx, let's use y squared for simplicity equals to 2x. Okay, so y squared equals to 2x is the function. Now we need to get y from this function, right? So we can get y by y equals to, we can take a root of both the sides and we'll have plus minus root 2x, right? Then the output, if instead of we were to write it down here, so this function is 2x, and input is x, whatever that is, the output will be positive root 2x or negative root 2x. So here we are having two different outputs for one single input. That is not a function. If you have functions or a set where you get two mathematical values from one single input, that is not a function. A function must have only one single input and one single output corresponding to that input. If it has two different values of output, that is not a function. Okay, so if we rearrange what functions are, they are just something that takes input. Okay, just this is a pretty short video. It takes an input x, and depending on what the function is, it could be 2x, it could be 3x plus 4, it could be 6x, it could be anything. Depending on the input, there will be a corresponding output which we call as y, but usually referred as fx. Okay, so it is referred as fx. With that said, you have understood what are functions. Okay, so don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.